So now let's talk about this 15-year long trend shift in private and PSU banking. Before we go forward, do like and share these videos and do subscribe to the channel if you haven't so far. So very recently, Economic Times had this caption that in a first in 14 years, private banks have been beaten by PSU banks in loan growth. So quarter three FY25 results, you can see corporate loans 10% average growth amongst top five public sector banks, and corporate loans were less than 4% growth, average growth among top five private banks. So this is happening. The narrative is happening now, but let's see what has been the stock performance or the broader picture in both the sectors. Both the sectors meaning private banking versus public sector banking. So if we see the past 20 years of data, you can see that there is no comparison. While Nifty went up nearly 1,000% in the last 20 years, private banks went up 2,700% as an index, and PSU banks went up only 352% as an index. So you can see there's a seismic shift from 352% to 2,700% in the same time period by these two different segments of the same industry actually. And if we see piecemeal pre-COVID only, then pre-COVID you can see that almost 15 years of period 2005 to 2020, PSU banks went up 63% only, and in the same time period private banks went up 1636%. So absolutely no comparison between these two uh, trends till here. And if we were to also compare the biggest of these giant banks between in these two sectors, then HDFC Bank in the last 20-15 years pre-COVID did 2100% gains versus 400% gains of SBI. So very much in line with the index underlying these spaces. So pre-COVID time for private banks was exceptionally good compared to PSU banking, but something changed post-COVID. And post-COVID, if we see the last 5 odd years, you can see that PSU banks are up 400%, while private banks are up only 76%. So something shifted at the uh, turn of the decade. Perhaps COVID uh, triggered it, but PSU banks became the new darlings of the market at plus 400% versus 76% right here. And if we compare the two giant banks from these spaces, again you can see the same trend. SBI up 251% since COVID, and HDFC Bank up since only 40% since that time. So now let's see the top five of each of these segments also to see where they stand, which stocks are leading it. So in the PSU banking space in the last roughly 5 years, you can see Canara Bank has done the best at 533%, Union Bank 510%, Bank of Baroda 420%, PNB 271%, and SBI 253%. So this is the top five PSU bank performance in the last 5 years. And in the top five private banking space, you can see while ICICI Bank did very well at 177%, although still much lower than its PSU counterparts. Axis Bank was at 100%, HDFC Bank at nearly 40%, Kotak Bank at 9% only in the last 5 years, and IndusInd Bank at minus 2.2%. So the top fifth private bank has delivered virtually nothing in the last 5 years. And the third and fourth positioned bank also have delivered very poor results in the last 5 years. So you can see, how concentrated these sectors are, where some of the banks are pulling the weight of their entire, top team. You can say it's just like some top tier batsmen, doing the hitting for the rest of the team also. And now what we are noticing is the trends are reversing again. So since March 2024, private banks are again pushing ahead of PSU banks in the last year and 1 quarter. Private banks are up 20% versus PSU banks at 0.33%. So these trends can keep changing, and only a very focused, systematic way of measuring momentum scores or some trend analysis can keep you with the right trend at the right time. So uh, we all know that HDFC Bank is a very popular buy and hold stock, and everybody loves the bank. But in the last 5 years, the performance has been pretty poor. The capital that we've perhaps invested in HDFC Bank could have been used elsewhere, while HDFC Bank was simmering around, and can always come back to HDFC Bank when it starts to perform. Uh, these nimble strategies that we always talk about, they can adapt fast to these changes. So while a regular strategy may require you to hold on for a stock for 5 to 10 years, perhaps, to even know that whether it is performing or not. I mean, at what point, let's say you bought HDFC Bank 5 years back and you are up 40%. Now, at what point will you say that no, I want to move from this to something else which is up 400%? Because that stock that is up 400% perhaps may be going to 800%, and you may be going from 40% to 80%. So it's very difficult to say unless you have a way of measuring some things and how to implement that decision. So some rules are required, how to do that. Because if we are going to do this on an ad hoc basis, that I feel like it's time for HDFC Bank, perhaps you may be right, but perhaps you may be wrong. So and if you are wrong and you find that out 5 years later that you were wrong, I should not have bought Asian Paints or whatever maybe the stock, you will have a lot of uh, loss of confidence on your own decision making, and that is something that you don't want to do. So what are your thoughts? Do comment below in the comments. Will this PSU banks rally continue, or will private players now again take the lead and in this third leg beat private public sector banks again? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks so much for watching. Do like and share these videos, and do subscribe to the channel. Thanks. Bye.